reminder.
Nobody told me to. All right, Rotary motto.
Service above self.
Service above self, and the bell was a little late, but we'll move on. And please stand. Put your hand over your heart and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh, great. And as we roll through with the next moment of silence. Thank you, everyone. How's everybody? Happy spring.
Thank you.
Spring is here. The robins are all about. The sun is out today. And for those of you who celebrate, Easter is about a week and a half away. Kind of snuck up on us this year. Before we do announcements, I'd like to thank Bill Murphy and Jackie and Diane for running last week's meeting. I was in the car listening to the meeting and have come to the conclusion that they do a better job.
No. No, they did a great
But
job.
it took all of us to do what you do as one person.
No, what you did was had a lot of interaction. Everybody was chiming in, and and that's what it's supposed to be. It's
We
supposed
missed
to.
you.
Go ahead.
We missed you, Bill.
Well, I'm back, and you'll be sorry. But let me tell you, the days are getting shorter. So Chuck, no, not the what do you call the sun and the
Number
moon?
days.
But my days are getting shorter, and Chuck will be running the show. So Chuck, are you getting ready?
Yeah, I think so. And I've had a lot of help. So don't know if I'd have been ready without that help. And I really appreciate it. Everything from top down and from the membership, from Medi for bringing forth several speakers for us, and hearing from others like Randy and Reggie. So a lot of help, and maybe more than I deserve, but I really do appreciate it.
You can't get too much help, and we all appreciate your supporting Chuck with the speakers. In fact, we have never been in a better position. We are booked up through the end of this fiscal year, and Chuck has told Reggie, "It's your ball." But Reggie, you'll get tremendous support from the team. I don't know where she went, but I'd like to dedicate our meeting today to Mary. Jackie and I called Mary, we did our calls late last week, just to remind her that it is good being an American. And the call was timely because she was very upset. And and Jackie, you can chime in here. She really was disappointed because she so much wanted to be a citizen. And as soon as she joined up, the road got rocky. And we assured her that the road really is smooth, and that for one, her Rotary Club had its arms around her. So if she comes back on, just, we'll make her feel good again. But this meeting is dedicated to Mary. So a couple of thanks. The Boys and Girls Club sent me a thank you for our support of the Boys and Girls Program on the Eastern Shore. We gave $1,000. That's a big amount of money. It helps them tremendously. And Smart Beginnings on the Eastern Shore, the diaper bag for young mothers project, they sent us a thank you as well. And we contributed $500 to Smart Beginnings. Service projects are beginning to kick in. And let me give you an update on some of the things that have happened since I last spoke with you, a couple of weeks. The Cape Charles Board decided that we would focus on the Mary Nottingham Smith project up in Accomack for a district grant. Those of you who aren't familiar with Mary and Smith, I'll just briefly share with you about 10 years ago, it was 10 years ago, the Northampton County Board of Supervisors gave that building, which was a black high school that had been shuttered up, but the county gave the building, a tremendous facility, to the alumni of that school. And for the last 10 years, one project at a time, they have been rehabbing that building so it would be suitable for community purposes, including one favorite project I like, having a facility for the Boys and Girls Club in that area. So they are very close to getting the job done, but there are still some projects that have to be completed, particularly from a safety code perspective, if they were going to have a group of children there for a formal program. So I've reached out to the other two clubs. Exmoor is going to present the idea to their club Thursday night. I haven't heard from Andre yet, but it's beginning to come together, and I'll keep you posted. And if it all works out, we'd like to present that as our multi-club district grant. Any questions about that project or going ahead for a district grant? Bill?
Yeah, just along with that, Bill, when you do hear back from Andre, and I'll put something out later myself, but just be sure everybody's aware, we've just about got the final report done, I think, from what I looked at this morning. So for this year's grant, so we're good there. But all the incoming presidents have to have at least their foundation goals entered into DAC-DB and My Rotary before, I can never remember the May 1 or May 15, but somewhere in the early May timeframe, they have to have their goals in. We also have to have the MOU written, signed, and uploaded by all three clubs. And the grant has to be written and submitted all right around the 1st of May. So I'll get the definite dates on that, but that's really only a little over a month. I guess it's about 6 weeks away, maybe 5. So those are all important things. And I'll talk to you about it later, but sometimes communication from the NANCOC's a little sketchy with me. So just, when you put something out, maybe if you mention it too, it would help. But anyway, those are all important things we need to keep in mind.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Chuck?
A question on this. Do you foresee any hands-on work by the club while the building's being rehabbed, or is it more we're paying contractors to do it and then we step in once the facility is ready and work with like the Boys and Girls Club, so forth?
Both, Chuck.
Okay.
And I thought the reason I've been delayed on this is I've asked them for 6 months now, just because of my interest in the Boys and Girls Club, to put together their shopping list. And they finally have done it, and there's opportunities for sweat, equity, and money. So, and we'll, we can put it together so there's a balance there.
All right.
Mehdi, you have a question?
Yeah, I'd like to ask whether there is any attention given to the history of the place.
What was that again?
I'd like to know whether there is any attention being given to the history of the place and there is some research into the use, the older.
Yes, there's been a lot of work done, Mehdi, and there's a lot documented on their website. And I will send you their website
Yeah,
because there's a rich history there.
yeah,
The Mary Ann Smith story is a phenomenal one.
Can you
Okay,
send
well,
that
really
out
filling
to
out
every,
on the meeting. We're
can you
up.
send that link to everyone?
I'll send it to everyone.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's see what else. Okay, other projects. Dennis Libby and Bob Church isn't here today. Wouldn't expect Dennis to be here, but Dennis has reserved April 24th for cleaning up the highway. So hopefully the water is pretty much subsided and we won't have to be out there in our waders, but April 24th. And what
day is that?
It's a Saturday. It's the 4th Saturday in April. And we'll have to figure a way to help them, compile the list. It's a little different now that we're Zooming, but
Bill, I saw them cleaning up yesterday.
Oh, the sheriff?
Somebody was out there. They had a lot of bags of trash that they picked up.
Wow, our job will be easy.
I think it was VDOT was out there doing it, I believe. I saw some VDOT guys out there yesterday.
Okay, well, let's hope it's got a little more trash by the 24th and we can do something. But I'll get with Dennis. If it's really clean, we might, push back a little bit. I don't know. But we'll leave that to Dennis and Bob to figure out.
Hey, Bill,
Yes.
I believe that the Cape Charles Yacht Club also does that. It may have been them this past Saturday.
No, they do another road. Paul's in charge of that.
No, I'm not,
It used to be.
but I participate in it. And they do the new road between Stone Road and Bay Creek and going on to the concrete plant.
Facade
As well
Parkway?
as the roads around
Yeah.
the harbor.
Yeah.
Whereas we just do Stone Road.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's our road. Nobody does our road but us. The Eastern Shore Coalition Against Domestic Violence. You have to take a breath after you say that. They came to us and asked for some help on refreshing the playground. And I went up there the other day and met with the person responsible for that. And it's really been kind of worn out since we did a project about 8 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, for a district grant. And Tommy Arnold, the president-elect of Exmoor Rotary Club, has stepped up and has agreed to be the project leader for that. And he's got a couple of people. Tommy's a contractor. On Thursday, I'm going to go up and meet with Tommy and do a walkthrough with the staff up there. And they have the money, but they don't have the skilled hands and the strong backs to do the job. So that's something we're going to ask once the date is set up by Tommy or dates. We're going to ask for volunteer help. There are things like just spreading mulch around that, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to do. I think I'll volunteer for that. But there'll be John Coulter, who is a honorary Rotarian in my mind. He's already signed up. So that's a good project and that's coming along. Chuck, would you want to say anything about you've rekindled these cemetery project?
Yeah, I rode by several times the location there at the corner of Sunrise and Seaside. It was a pretty bad week last week, a lot of rain, and so I did not see them. Actually, day before yesterday, I rode up there and I saw them working. So I don't think they have any scheduled date or time. I think they just kind of work around the weather when they get a chance. I will contact Clara and see when the next time is they are planning to go out there and what the terms are. In other words, are the terms you plan to do at this date, but if it's raining, forget it. It's kind of hard to organize volunteers if we don't have some kind of a scheduled date or something to shoot for. So I will contact Clara and see if they have a specific day that they typically work or days and work around the weather and see if I can get something put together for the membership to volunteer. I mentioned it last time, they really don't want any more than 2 or 3 people and they want to kind of manage over it. When I looked at it the other day, they have things roped off. If you've ever seen archaeological digs and so forth, they rope off squares and then they work into certain squares. It looks like they were doing it at that time. So they're still clearing out a lot of down trees and brush all up along the roadway there. They're clearing out, but they're also starting to organize, looks like some archaeological digs. So I'll let everybody know what's going on there. I want to fall back real quick on the highway cleanup. I think we look typically for at least 12 volunteers. Is that right?
Yeah,
Three
Paul
groups-
is probably the best, most knowledgeable person here.
12 is what we
groups
need,
of-
yes.
Yeah, 3 groups of 2 on each side of the road. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and Dennis, Dennis knows the drill.
Yeah.
And once we get going, that'll work out. All right, and Bob isn't here, but we also have the fire
Yeah.
hydrants on our list.
Bill, can I make a comment?
Yes, absolutely, Maddie.
Do we have a place where we can look up a list of all these projects that we are doing and a lot of the contribution that we are making? Is there a place that one can go to?
No.
We have a website,
But
for
that-
example.
It's probably a good thing to have. And that's what I'm looking for with this awards committee chair. The awards committee chair would be compiling all of this stuff as we go through the year, documenting it, and then we just dump it on district and we get a fistful of awards. So if somebody would step up and be the awards committee chair, Medi would feel much better. So let's stay on that. Meanwhile, we do have a record in our recordings of the meeting and notes that I keep as president, but it's not formalized. And Medi is right on. We need to document and keep a record of all we do good in the neighborhood. All right for that.
I have a question.
Yes.
When I got my last COVID shot, I noticed up on the board, there was, the Rotary Club of Cape Charles was mentioned for that whole facility. Does anybody know how much money or what we contributed to that?
Yeah.
Rural health?
That was around a $16,000 district grant that the 3
Okay,
clubs went together on. 5,000 for each club, and then our club. I don't know whose watch was that on. My watch. We probably contributed at least $500. Could have been more. I don't recall. But that was a sizable project, Regina.
Yeah.
Bill, you have a memory.
Thank you for the compliment. Yeah, that was the last time Onencock had the lead, which I think was year before last. And what we did was the grant went to outfit one of the pediatric examining rooms there. And I think we also were supposed to help paint the room, but the construction delays, we had to close the grant out before we did much in the way of sweat equity. But the district said we could just count the time to plan the grant and coordinate it. So that was the Onencock Club that did that. And like I said, we outfitted one of the pediatric exam rooms.
Was that the Eastville facility?
Yeah, the new
Okay.
Eastville facility.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And that's an example of a district grant. And it's, oh, Margaret's coming on. I will introduce Margaret in a bit. All right, Bill, I'm going to say it for you. April 6th is Giving Tuesday. So if you're inclined to maximize your support of the annual fund, Rotary Annual Fund, start warming up your checkbooks. I see, look at Mark. Mark is swinging in his chair and Mark's got his pen ready. And so, and Regina's smiling too. We have a couple of Rotarians that really leverage that. Paul, you want to give us a few minutes on where we stand COVID wise?
Sure. I looked at the data yesterday, like I do every Monday. Unfortunately, instead of seeing the graphs everywhere continue to come down, last week we'd seen them sort of stall out most places and go up in Accomack County and Virginia Beach, as I recall. I worried that presaged a rise, and now we've seen a rise again in incidence of cases in most locations. Last week we had, for example, no new cases in Cape Charles, but this past week we had 3. Similarly, we saw a rise in the state as a whole and in several other locations. I'm sure, the new variant, particularly the British variant, it now accounts for 1/3 of the new cases in the United States. It's much more transmissible. So long story short, don't be premature in thinking we're out of the woods with this. We're not. We could well see another surge. Where the cases have sort of bottomed out, most places is at a similar level to that's higher than most places saw at the peak last summer. And at the time we thought that was bad. And of course now we've got a new standard because of the huge surge after Thanksgiving and Christmas. And that came down, but it only came down to levels that we saw around the peak or a little above the peak last summer. So it's not time to relax and think this is over.
I think what I saw this morning on the news, nationally, we were at 13% of the people fully vaccinated and somewhere close to 24% with at least 1 shot of 2. So we got a ways to go.
Thanks, Paul. That pretty much does it. Oh, when I was listening into, Randy's got something to say.
We are participating in the Cape Charles, I guess, town-wise yard sale on the 17th of April, Saturday. And we are going to have a table there, hopefully with a golf cart, Bill, if you keep it charged up for us.
It's on charge right now.
And we need some volunteers to man that booth. We'll call it a booth. It's probably going to be from 10 o'clock till whenever we give up, maybe 3 or 4 in the afternoon. And no one has to be there for all that time. But if anybody is interested, can raise your hand now or send me an email and let me know you'll be there.
What's that date again?
17th.
And where was that at, Randy?
I believe we're going to be at Strawberry Plaza. I don't know that for sure. I've sent in the application. I haven't heard any feedback. It's a general application for something, I guess, any activity that you want to do in town. But I think we're in good shape. Mr. Stram has put in a good word for us. And Bill, is to the best of your knowledge, will be located at Strawberry Plaza.
Yeah. will be it would be Strawberry
We
Blossom.
just need some folks. Oh, and by the way, the tickets you sell that day don't come off of your personal tickets. These are tickets in addition to your personal tickets. So I don't want any misunderstandings here.
Randy, you were the kind of sales manager I looked for when I was slugging it out at IBM.
Yeah, I'm the kind of sales manager that most of the salesmen really didn't care for.
That's great, Randy. Randy is doing a tremendous job with his team. We've hardly started, and we are going to break the record for a project on this one. If we don't raise $10,000, shame on us, because Randy's running it. It's super. So,
one other comment. When we distribute the tickets, which is going to be at the middle of next month, the plan is to distribute 20 tickets to each member, with the exception of Bill Payne, who I've doubled that for him because
you can triple it.
But if anyone really is excited and wants more than that, just let me know. We can get more to you initially, or after you sell all 20, we can get more to you. So, I mean, if you've got something going on in the back of your mind that says, I'm going to really, kill this thing, we'll be glad to help you by getting you more tickets initially.
I'm glad Bill Payne lives close to me because he sells my tickets at a great pace.
Oh, no, wait a minute. Hold it. Hold it.
Okay, I'd like to, because Margaret has shown up and has Joan left already? Yeah.
Yeah, she said she
Joan left. So Margaret, I just want to acknowledge that you're here. I'm good. Margaret, you look great.
I dressed up for you guys. I dressed up for the Cape Charles Rotary.
I'm going to introduce Margaret to you in a little bit. I think everybody knows her, but Margaret, this is what we've been doing since March.
Last year.
March of last year, yeah.
That is a global statement, isn't it? That is a global experience.
So thanks for joining us, Margaret. One thing I just want to wrap up with. Last week when I was listening in, it was all I could do to keep my mouth shut when the club was discussing crab cakes, do we or don't we? And I said, the team has to come to a decision. Come to a decision. Crab cakes are out. You all but said it, but I'd like to make it official. Crab cakes are out. Randy's going to double the crab cake gross anyway, and I don't think crab cakes are going to be something people will want to buy this July. Come Thanksgiving, I think we'll be enough out of the woods that maybe we can do it. We'll have to get Paul's blessing, but don't worry about us selling crab cakes. Just focus on the raffle tickets. So is there anything else for the good of Rotary before Diane brings up Happy Dollars? Okay, Diane. Happy Dollars. Now, Happy Dollars is just to express your happiness, Margaret, if you wonder about what we're doing here. And you don't have to express a lot of money, but you have to express a lot of happiness. And who is going to start off with $1? John Burtis. This will not be $1 because John's been absent a lot. He's right. I can't wait. Go ahead, John.
Well, in fairness, last week I was being deposed on Zoom by a lady from Chicago. So, and I don't think she was particularly impressed with me. That wouldn't surprise anybody. I'm going to throw in, because I've missed a couple of weeks and it's a really big thing for me, $50.
Oh, wow.
Here's the reason. Saturday, I went to Salisbury, Maryland, and I know specifically now where my great-grandfather was buried there in 1929. He is a veteran of the Spanish-American War, of World War I. He was in the Navy almost 30 years. long family story about how he got separated from my grandmother. The short story is I think he married a woman about 9 years older than my grandmother. A second marriage, my first grandmother, great grandmother had died. Anyway, had a lot of help from people in Salisbury, and it's often when you're doing genealogical work, it helps a lot of people. But we're getting a veterans monument for him, which the government provides, and we're really excited about it. He's been there since 1929. He knew where he was, but we didn't. He's buried next to his second father-in-law, which we never got the maiden name of his second wife. So this was a great find for us. We went up, and I had a couple of beers at the local brew pub too to celebrate. So $50 for great grandpa Robert Lee Walton, not related to the Waltons of Arkansas, unfortunately. And unlike what my grandmother said, not related to the Waltons of Walton Mountain because they weren't real people anyway. That's what she would tell me. So that's the short story on Grandpa. Great story.
Let me tackle on real quick. Anybody that needs help for things like that, you can come see me. I have a lot of resources. I can dig up long lost relatives, and I don't want to volunteer, Alan, but Alan's also into that kind of work.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Chuck.
Sure.
Bill Murphy.
Well, I don't have 50 happy dollars, but I do have I do have 5 for something similar. This past week, I got an email from my brother who does a little bit of genealogy research on the side, and he came across a picture or finally found the records on our great grandfather who was named William Marshall Murphy, and he doesn't know where he was buried yet because he came over from Ireland, but he was born in 1838, died in 1920, but he was the I think the original one that came here. So it's too late to blame him for me, but that's where it started, I guess. So anyway, it was nice to know that. So I've got 5 happy dollars for that.
Thank you, Bill. Bill Stram.
Bill, I might mention too, there's some scary thought that Murphy and I may be related back in the chain, just so you know.
I wasn't going to bring that. I wasn't going to bring that up. Some people didn't know that, but okay.
I know. I'm sure neither one will want to claim that if it really turns out to be true.
When we find the missing link, we'll have a beer over that.
Exactly. Maybe Neanderthal. It could be that.
Bill Stram.
I have 5 happy dollars. John mentioned a state, Arkansas, and since I am a Razorback,
Oh yeah,
they're in the Elite 8 now, so that's great. And plus, their baseball team is #1 in the nation, so it's pretty good. $5.
Sweet 16, Bill. Don't give them the 8 yet. They got another game to win. But they're good.
I'm pulling for Stram.
I'm mad because the Mountaineers got beat, but they have a great team. They do. Arkansas does.
Hey, Bill. Hey, Bill, I've got 5 happy dollars. We're kind of celebrating my niece's 1 year since her heart transplant. She's doing exceptionally well. So 5 happy dollars for Al.
Al,
Right.
I didn't know about that. Tell us some more about your niece.
She was at Johns Hopkins University. She was feeling ill a little over 1.5 years ago, and suddenly realized she had a myocardial something or other. The muscle around her heart just wasn't functioning. And within 2 months' time, they determined she needed a heart transplant. She got the heart transplant. And a year ago, I think it was last week. So she's been doing very well since, recovered, and loving life, loving every day of life.
Is she
How old
a
is
younger
she,
woman?
Al?
She's 38.
Wow.
Yeah. So we're all very pleased.
Now that's a happy dollar.
Yes.
All 5 of them. I have 5 happy dollars, and I'm happy that Mary did show up. I wish she had stuck around, but I'll remind you all to reach out to Mary and remind her what Rotary and America is all about. Anybody else? Reggie.
Yes, I had 10 happy dollars. We had a family happy hour that turned into 2.5 to 3 hours a Zoom with all of my family, my kids, grandkids, great grandkids from different parts of the country on Zoom. And we had a tremendous time. The great grandkids were running around having all kinds of fun, making noise and stuff like that. So it was a great party, 2.5 hour party of all of us, every single grandchild, all 6 of them, and both great grandchildren, and our son and daughter and their spouses. So that was fun. So $10 for the happy family Zoom meeting.
Good for you, Reggie.
I have
We'll do
let me
Betty
jump in.
and then Paul.
Who?
Ladies first.
Oh, okay.
Who?
Medi.
Oh,
Medi.
Matthew. All right, yeah. Well, I have 5 mixed happy dollars because it's a mixed sadness and happiness. The sadness was because one of my classmates' friends' child died of glioblastoma that's diagnosed two months ago. But because of that death, we planned to have rosary, a novena rosary for nine days. And I joined the rosary and it was organized on Zoom. And there were like 25 classmates from all over the world who attended that rosary. And so I was able to reunite with 25 classmates all the way from the Philippines, Canada, and all over the US. And so there was happiness in terms of us getting together to support our classmate who lost his child. So I'm offering $5 happy dollars and for that.
Well, Medi, I'm glad you could find a silver lining in that.
Yeah.
Paul?
Yeah, well, since Stram celebrated Arkansas's inclusion in the Sweet 16, I'm going to have to match that with a celebration of Alabama also making it into the Sweet 16. So that's worth $5 happy dollars from me.
Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, I have a happy.
Oh, wow, Stanley.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna join John. I have 52 happy dollars.
Whoa!
One for each year of happily married bliss. Yesterday was my anniversary, 52nd anniversary.
Wow.
Woo!
We're looking forward to your 100-year anniversary, Stephen.
Me too, believe me.
God, Sheila has been putting up with you for 50 plus years.
She deserves a medal.
More than that even. God. Congratulations, Stan.
Yeah, thank you.
They got a loan now.
Hey, hey, listen, Jackie, I'm always open, you know.
Okay, well, look, let's wrap up and invite Margaret. Are you there? Put yourself on live Zoom, Margaret. Who doesn't know Margaret? Raise your hand.
Yeah, quite a few people here.
Yeah. I met Margaret. First of all, Margaret is a Rotarian, but she doesn't know it because she exemplifies what Rotary is all about. When I met Margaret, she was doing good for the neighborhood. I think I met during, it probably had something to do with politics, but Margaret's everywhere helping people. She's been doing it since she arrived in Cape Charles. What was it, around 2006, 7, in that time frame?
8.
8, okay. And
there's your hint. Though I work for a nonpartisan nonprofit.
So, but Margaret is just, all I can say is she's a good friend. And everybody loves her. For the last 2 or 3 years, I've lost track. Margaret's been heading up the Nature Conservancy and has really placed it on the map. So Margaret, thanks for joining us. we're running a little late, but we always do. So we just run until you give up.
Well, I'll tell you, I've got an appointment at 1:30, so I can't.
Okay, then
can't keep you guys
start.
much longer than that. I prepared a 30-minute presentation, and I'll try and whip through it to be conscious of your time as well.
Okay.
Thank you, Bill. Quick clarification, I am the Outreach and Education Coordinator for the Nature Conservancy, which I've been doing for 6 years. Our director is Jill Bieri, and she's fantastic, and she would be happy to have me say I run the Nature Conservancy, except that's just confusing because it's not true. So, Bill, as always, I appreciate your inflated impression of my wonderment. We have known each other for a long time, and I always appreciate your lighthearted and well-intended ways, and that goes for pretty much all of y'all here. I do. You're right. I'm totally an honorary Rotarian. If I could figure out how on earth y'all schedule those meetings, I would find a way to attend them. It's wonderful work that y'all do, though. I really appreciate it. And I'm so glad to be able to come and give some updates. The last time I spoke with y'all was in September of 2016. I was pretty new into my position. I started this position as Outreach and Education Coordinator in 2015 and started really booking out speaking engagements afterwards. So I've come to you to try and do a combination of things. I want to give an overview because there are folks who are going to be new friends of mine and the conservancies here on the call, let you know what work we're doing here on the shore, but really focus, if I can, on a few updates that'll be of interest. And even if you had no idea of the information I gave in 2016, these updates, you're not going to be able to help to get excited because I get really excited. So I also, before I forget, I want to say that I love when you really see who's running the show, and I love that Jackie's on mute, but you can still hear her through Bill's mic. So awesome. I wish I was in the same room with y'all. I know we all do. When I was saying it's a global situation, our office, the last day we were in our office was March 13th, 2020. We've been able to do a lot of our field work, which I'll talk about some, because those are very, very small teams working in absolutely the middle of nowhere and literally miles apart from each other. So when we talk about physical distancing, let's put an island in between us and we've got it covered. But for me, the people person, it's been a different kind of struggle from a lot of our staff because they do typically work in the field doing restoration work, stuff I'll talk to you about. I connect people with that work. So it's been an interesting ride. And I think that we probably could all get into a really in-depth conversation about what that's been like, because I know some of the other organizations y'all are involved in and in Rotary itself. I mean, you can go pick up trash. I know that because I honk and wave when I go by and see Tina out there with Olivia and everybody. Anyway, here I said I would be conscious of time, and I'm just gushing because I'm just so excited to talk to people. So I'll talk a little bit about some program updates, a little bit about ways y'all can get involved or people can get involved. Everything we do is volunteer driven. And then I'll talk just a little bit about ways you can visit our properties and things you can do on your own or with our staff. As Paul mentioned, it's not the time to stop looking at numbers right now, for sure, as cases are kind of going up and down. So I do want to assure you that even if I don't mention it on every slide, the Nature Conservancy has really, really strict safety guidelines that in some cases are actually stricter at this point than the state guidelines. And we adhere to the Nature Conservancy's guidelines. So if I'm talking about a volunteer crew, you can be assured, regardless of what the photo shows, because it may be from slightly before, that our volunteer crews are at limits of numbers of 4 per group and that they're masking throughout, practicing physical distancing, doing a self-certification check beforehand. There are a lot of steps. And then we're doing these for our public programming as well. We are starting to offer very small guided walks. And those are typically a maximum of 10 people, including staff or volunteers. So just know that anything I'm talking about doing, safety is right there. It's the most important thing. So anyway, you probably assume that, but it's always really, really nice to hear it. Let's see if I can go into slideshow mode in front of everybody. This is it's so awkward when everyone sees the bones of your PowerPoint. Bill, you give me the thumbs up because you see it? Yes, Awesome. Okay. So the Nature Conservancy's Virginia Coast Reserve is what we're here to talk about. That is a beautiful aerial photo of Paramore Island. Gordon Campbell has very graciously allowed me and our staff to use his photography for educational purposes. We have a specific license set up with him that allows us, as long as we're not making any money off of it and using it for education, that we're allowed to use his aerial photography, which is just wonderful because, as you know, it is unparalleled. So a quick background of the Nature Conservancy, and some of this may be stuff y'all know and some may not, and that's what's cool about a background. We are the largest nonprofit conservation organization in the world. We are, as I say, a nonprofit, and we work in all 50 states, and we work in over 70 countries around the world. Last time we met, it was over 35 countries. I had fun. I went back and looked at my PowerPoint from 2016 and got so excited about how much, it's great news. The mission of the organization, got to have your mission statement, is a heavy one, and it is to conserve the lands and waters on which all life depends. No big whoop. And we use science to determine where we work and with whom we partner while we're protecting nature. So even my program, which, as I mentioned, part of my outreach work is to connect the public with our work, get folks involved in what we're up to, or at the very least aware of and hopefully supportive of it. And support comes in a lot of forms, as you know. Of course, you got to have dollars to make things work, but support just from neighbors having conversation is important. You know, we're such a special rural community here on the Eastern Shore that it's we want people to recognize what a precious place this is to the entire world from a scientific standpoint. And so I have all kinds of different methods of talking about that. And sometimes it's just being a total goofball out on the trail. A lot of times, hopefully again soon, it's connecting your children or grandchildren actually with the natural properties we have. I work with all ages. But because we are a nonprofit and because we are so large, we must have science at the heart of our work. That's not required for all nonprofits, of course. But I say that because if you're going to donate $20 or $20,000 or anywhere in between to the Nature Conservancy, this is not an ask, it's just a demonstration. If you're going to donate to the Nature Conservancy, you need to be able to know and trust that we're putting that money towards a project that we believe is going to work. And we don't just believe it. We've done scientific testing. We've worked with partners. We've peer reviewed the projects. You know, it's as without a doubt as you can possibly be while still working with science and nature where there is doubt evident. But I always like to point that out because it's not, I've had folks say to me, so you just kind of, maybe you find a shoreline and you go put some oysters in to see if they grow. And there's more to it than that. That is at the heart of it. But we need to make sure that those oysters are going to spawn year after year and that it's going to be a place where we can help protect the shoreline. Many different steps that go into it. So that is the very first slide. And I've already talked for 5,000 hours. The Virginia Coast Reserve is where we are now. So I mentioned that we're in all 50 states. The Virginia chapter does have 4 other landscape programs from as far west as the Clinch River Valley, the Allegheny Highlands, Southern Pinelands right over in Suffolk. We have a lot of different areas where we focus, but we are here in the Virginia Coast Reserve. This is the longest stretch of undeveloped coastline on the mid-Atlantic seaboard, and that is thanks to the protection of the barrier islands along our coast, which you may know. Oh, you're gonna see I'm wearing jeans, but as you know, we have these beautiful islands that protect us from many increasing storm events and wave activity. About 40,000 acres on the Eastern Shore Peninsula, including the islands, are owned or protected by the Nature Conservancy. We do help private landowners hold their property in conservation easement, and we partner with state and federal agencies as well to help with conservation. And so that gives you, yet again, I know y'all are well aware of what a beautiful conserved place this is. So a lot of that is actually thanks to our work. This is an internationally recognized UNESCO Biosphere Reserve. There are very few of these, relatively speaking, throughout the world. And I'm going to give you my contact information. I'm happy to go into depth about a lot of these things. But the fact that we are recognized by UNESCO for the importance of this area is really just amazing. Our sweet Eastern Shore, globally important. We have 14 marsh and barrier islands. That changes a little bit. Right now, Cobb Island is actually 2 islands because of a big washover event. They're a dynamic landscape. many different habitats, as you know here. I don't have to tell you that. And we are celebrating, we have just rolled past our 50th year of research and data collection and conservation here on the Eastern Shore. The Nature Conservancy started our work here in 1970. And we've decided that just because nobody could do anything in 2020 doesn't mean we can't continue celebrating our anniversary. So I'm continuing to toot that horn. And you see our beautiful logo there in the corner, which was actually designed by Liz Watson, a local designer, and you may know. We do all of our work in partnership. I mentioned this already, a little bit about how we work with state and federal partners. We also work with local groups like the Rotary, like the Barrier Island Center, Eastern Shore Land Trust, certainly the school systems, and then a wonderful group of volunteers here on the shore. And our programs that we focus on, we're a staff of 12, and we focus on land protection, migratory bird conservation, marine habitat restoration, coastal resilience, and outreach and education. Normally, I would be hearkening to you from Brownsville Preserve, which is where our headquarters is in Nassauatics. I am instead in my house on Tazewell Avenue, where Bill Payne has knocked on my door many times. And, and I almost always don't just hide from him. Sometimes I even offer him a bottle of water. So Brownsville Preserve is a 1,250 acre parcel of land right up by Nassauatics, where we do have a public birding and wildlife trail. There's a lot of scientific research and education that goes on in the preserve, and it is the headquarters for our Virginia Coast Reserve staff. Our office is currently closed to the public for obvious reasons. We are primarily working from home at this point, but we'll hope to be opening it up again soon. This is a little blurry, and I don't want you to have to squint at it too hard. I just want to demonstrate how much land is protected on the Eastern Shore of Virginia. Anything you see colored in at all on this map is under conservation protection of some form, whether it's with the Nature Conservancy, one of our smaller local land trusts like the Virginia Outdoors Foundation or Virginia Eastern Shore Land Trust. Some of it is state and federally protected. Lots of different protections on the Eastern Shore, and it's what makes this area so pristine, gives us our wonderful fresh seafood, you know, all these things that folks are just descending upon us to come and learn about and enjoy. So we're excited to get them connected with that as well. Barrier Island visitation is a land protection conversation that always comes up. So an update that we have since the last time I saw you is that Paramore Island has now been added to the islands that are whose shorelines are open to the public for low impact day use visitation. Over 90% of our shorelines are now open for low impact day use. You can see those islands are Hob, Cobb, Myrtle, Smith, Sandy, Rogue, Godwin, Mink, and Paramore. And the Nature Conservancy on portions of Metomkin and Cedar Island. I hope it'll be all right, Bill and Chuck, if I send an email after the fact with some cool links. Great, thank you, Chuck, I see you nodding. Explore Our Seaside is a new website that we've just developed with some partners that has great information about access policies for the islands, as well as why they're in place. You know, why can't I bring my dog out onto the island? He's a really good dog. Well, I'll tell you what, those islands are protected for beach nesting birds that nest right in the sand, and bird brain is not a compliment. Bird doesn't know your dog is a good dog, you know? So I love dogs, but I got to keep them at home when I'm coming to the islands. And that brings me to talk about migratory bird conservation very briefly. I have to touch on all of our programs, of course. So this is at the heart of our work here at the Virginia Coast Reserve. The reason the Nature Conservancy started taking an interest in 1970 and slightly before was there was talk of development on the islands, which would have shown a pretty good lack of foresight now that we see how those islands roll along and are impossible to keep still. But the Nature Conservancy started purchasing the properties in order to preserve this portion of the Atlantic Flyway, which is an important migratory flyway for all kinds of birds, as well as butterflies, by the way. You notice our monarch migration that we get in the fall is just really outstanding. And we've been studying migratory bird and beach nesting shorebird activity on the Barrier Islands for, I put over 5 decades. You know what, I was updating a slide that said over 4 decades, for 5 decades. I got a little excited there. What's important about that, as you may realize, is that if you can go out and study the same place year after year after year after year after decade, you can develop these data sets that really help you to understand what causes a population to thrive, what causes a population to become vulnerable, all kinds of things. So every year, our migratory bird conservation team goes out and walks 52 miles of coastline every summer, monitoring the nesting activity out there of birds like the American oystercatcher and the piping plover and the royal tern. And so they're learning about where these nests are, where the birds are thriving the best. If there's an issue where perhaps we're having a public issue, you know, maybe folks are picnicking a little more and they're not necessarily adhering to the access policies, we may ask a volunteer, one of our island stewards, to go out and start talking to folks. That looks a little different this summer, of course, but to go out and say, hey, you know, we get it. We know why you want to be romping and playing up here above the high tide line, but there are birds nesting here. Could you perhaps enjoy your sports fishing and picnicking right down here a little closer to the surf and allow the birds to have their safe territory? And that goes on from April through August. They begin nesting in April and they fledge in August. So after August and up until April, you're welcome to go all over the place in the islands. And during that nesting time, you're welcome to attend on the shorelines. And I'm going to show you a little bit about why, because I wonder if anybody here can see the nest in this photo, and I will just give you a second to look at it there and see if you can see that it is right square in the middle. That's an American oystercatcher. We call it a scrape. It's not technically called a nest. It's called a scrape. When you don't nest in trees and there's nothing to hide behind, all you've got is camouflage. So they thrive in these areas of broken shell. One of the things that island washovers is actually really helpful for is nesting activity. Excuse me. These islands are of a really dynamic nature, and we could get into a whole other conversation about that at some point. But the fact that they're constantly moving and shifting, people worry, they think they're disappearing. We can't tell yet if that's actually happening. There are certain islands where, for example, Hog Island is becoming much wider on the north end. Cobb Island is split in half and is becoming wider on the south end. The islands change, and it's kind of what they're built to do. If you think of something that wasn't built at all, and in fact, our millennia old sand dunes, where basically a bird pooped a seed and the seed took purchase and grass grew and the island started to hold together. But when these washover events happen, where the ocean actually pushes through the island, it creates new beach nesting bird habitat. So it's kind of one of those, maybe the door doesn't close for another one to open, but the door just, you know, shifts locations ever so slightly. So a fun update. Some of y'all may know our coastal scientist, Alex Wilkie. Her kiddos go to Cape Charles Christian School, and Alex has been heading our migratory bird program here for, I guess about 15 years or so. She basically started when she was a baby. She was recently awarded a really special award, which is the 2020 American Oystercatcher Working Group Annual Award. Because they are scientists, they could not come up with some flashy way to shorten that. So Alex began her love of the American oystercatcher, which is the bird that's featured there in that beautiful woodwork, and in her graduate studies with, I just completely blanked. I think she was at William & Mary. Anyway, with her graduate studies, which brought her to the Eastern Shore. She's from Delaware originally, and has been in the steering committee for the American Oystercatcher Working Group pretty much from the very start. And they have increased protections as well as community understanding of this important shorebird, not only along every state in the Atlantic and Gulf Coast, but in several countries, including Mexico and Nicaragua. You're going to hear me talk quite a bit off and on. Check my time. Here I go. About the global importance of the work that's being done here, because it just blows my mind. I just think it's so neat that we have such a special place that is so personal to all of us, right? Whether we're from here or whether we just moved here. I moved here from Charlottesville, Virginia in 2008, as Bill said. But there's things that are so special to us here. And it turns out those things are special around the world, and they're of real scientific importance. So it's pretty exciting to get to play a role in it. So speaking of some scientific importance, I mentioned our marine habitat restoration program. I think the last time I saw y'all, I would have talked quite a bit about oyster restoration as well as eelgrass restoration. And I want to focus on oysters for a moment here because we have a really cool project that's just begun up on off of the seaside village of Wachapreague up in Accomack County. Cedar and Paramore Island. Cedar is just north of Paramore Island. They are two islands that, as their dynamics are changing, they're moving further apart. Paramore's northern tip is being pushed westward and around a little bit. And so it's widening, but it's also moving further away from Cedar Island, which is on the north. Cedar's doing a little bit of a different thing. And then there's a piece of property owned by the state that people enjoy called Dawson Shoal in between, which is becoming a really big sandy island in its own. Very interesting. But because of this moving a part of the islands, the inlet that is there in between the two of them that opens up to the Atlantic Ocean, which is what's on the outer edge of the islands. That's why we say seaside instead of oceanside, right? Because the oceanside is on the east coast of the Barrier Islands. At least that's why I think we say seaside. I don't know. Maybe it's just so we can sound cool and figure out who's not from here, you know, or who hasn't been here. Anyway, as these islands are moving apart, the wave activity that's coming in through this inlet is increasing, understandably, right? I mean, if you got the Atlantic Ocean out here being huge, and there are islands that used to protect you, those islands start to move, the Atlantic Ocean's force is able to come in to the coastal bays, and in this case, towards the seaside village of Wachapreague. Now, in between the Barrier Islands, in these coastal bays, which we have all the way up the coast from from Fisherman's Bay that you can see coming across the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel up to Chincoteague Bay, and Maryland has them too, but we're not here to talk about Maryland. Love Maryland. But there are marshes throughout as well. So it's not just islands, shallow coastal bay or coastal lagoon, and then peninsula. There are lots and lots of marshes in between. We even call some of them marsh islands because they're so large. These play a lot of roles, but one of them that's really important for coastal resilience is they slow and absorb wave activity. So if you think about, rolling a basketball across a basketball court or rolling it across a, sort of uncut grassy lawn, that basketball rolls a lot more slowly across the uncut grassy lawn because it's providing some resistance. So while a marsh is unlikely to grow high enough to be able to keep huge waves from crashing into the shore, it can take the punch out of those waves a little bit. And so the marsh that is right in between Wachapreague and this inlet was taking the punch out of the waves so effectively that the waves were punching it down as well. So we have now got funding from, you see it says NFWF, that's the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation, to embark. We've just started on a 2-year project that has a second phase that we'll talk about when I see you next time, to actually restore this marsh using oyster restoration techniques. And if we are successful, then we will actually be able to protect a lot of properties in that seaside village of Wachapreague. So this is a really tangible example of how marine habitat restoration work is providing serious, tangible benefits to our local communities, aside from the fact that oysters are delicious and that they clean the water and that they provide habitat for all kinds of wonderful fin fish that we love and crabbies and everybody else. They're really, really good at holding marshes together and then also at slowing that wave activity. And so we are using a combination of oyster castles, which you can see in the bottom right corner, that long row. Oyster castles are basically concrete Lego blocks that are 30 pounds a piece, that you can lock into place and make all kinds of interesting shapes out of. They are, it is not biodegradable, but it's a certified green composite. It's not cement. There aren't, or concrete, now I'm mixed up. There are no chemicals leaching out of the water. This is a completely natural composite that makes these blocks. And now, so we've been using these for quite a bit. You may have heard about oyster castle projects on the Eastern Shore over the past few years, but now there is a company in North Carolina that has designed a new substrate, which is the hard stuff that oysters grab onto, that is called oyster catcher, which is really cute because we've got the bird, the American oyster catcher, but they're also there to catch oysters. And that is, if you see in the top middle there, what looks like a total mess of sort of, crazy lawn tables stacked all over the place. That is the oyster catcher substrate. And here you can see some photos of volunteers actually making it. So if you're interested in helping in this project, but you're not totally sure that you're up for going out for 3 hours and lugging 30-pound blocks around and helping us stack oyster castles, which is a lot of fun if you're up for it, then you can come up to Brownsville Preserve on one of our work days and help us actually make this new oyster catcher substrate. So you see, we've got folks there by the cement mixer, and they're using a jute twine, basically, which we can form in all kinds of different shapes. They cover it again with this green composite, all certified safe for the environment. and it holds together in different shapes that not only do oysters seem to really like to grab onto, well, they do really like to grab onto. And you may know an oyster swims in its larval state, but once it is out of its larval state and it finds something hard to grab onto, it lives there for the rest of its life, and then it just filters. It doesn't move on. It spawns. It can continue its footprint, but the actual oyster will stay put. It will spawn, and then its larva will get on the water column, and then hopefully move to a very nearby area, and then continue to increase the footprint of what we call an oyster reef. But the other thing is, as you can see, the way this stuff's shoved down into the mud, it helps hold the marsh sediment together as well. So you've got the combination of the fact that it's growing oysters, which we've talked a lot about now, how good that is, but also itself is holding the marsh together, and it's biodegradable. So at some point, once it's done its job, basically, the timing seems to be working out pretty well, this interior structure will eventually go away, leaving the oysters still right there to continue spawning and continue increasing the footprint of that reef. So that's a really cool, really exciting new project that I'm getting to come up with some pretty innovative ways to do outreach on, because I'm required by the grant to do a great deal of people contact. And again, it's hard to contact people. I mentioned that I just wanted to show you guys some of the photos of groups that visit us in 2019, and we're hopefully going to have more of these kinds of visits going on again. But these are folks from Hong Kong, Chile, and New Zealand who traveled in 2019 on various study and research outings to learn about particularly the marine habitat restoration work that is going on here at the Virginia Coast Reserve. The fellow from Chile, Danilo, who's in the photo with our banner there, is actually the me of his reserve in Chile, which is cool, the Valdivian Coast Reserve. So he's a VCR as well. So it was really exciting for me and my work partner, Jenny, who's next to him in the red pants, to get to have somebody who came to talk with us about people work, as well as opportunities to talk with folks about the scientific work that's going on here. I must mention just briefly the eelgrass restoration project. I focus on it so heavily usually that I wanted to give oysters a chance again, but it is the largest successful seagrass restoration project on the planet. This is also volunteer driven. You see that photo in the top left corner. Those are two large skiffs with probably about 12 volunteers standing in the middle of South Bay, which is one of the larger restoration sites there. And everything you see that's dark, you can see it's a little bit dappled, is all eelgrass. And this is a subaquatic vegetation that's really important to bay scallops. It's excellent nursery habitat for young fishes. It's where peeler crabs go to hide when their blue crabs are in their soft shell stage. We'll still get some, don't worry. You still get your soft shell BLT at the shanty. And in fact, because of healthy eelgrass meadows, you can have more soft shell BLTs at the shanty. When we met last time, we had restored about 5,000 acres of eelgrass, and that is now over 9,000 acres at this point. So it is absolutely growing like gangbusters. It's to the point where the eelgrass is seeding itself. You see in the top right, there's a photo of some grass, blades of grass there, and you can see the little seeds in there. Brittany in the bottom right there is collecting seeds for us to cure and then re-sow at the fall. So basically, our volunteers go out, crawl around. She's standing, and that's at high tide. It's pretty shallow out there. Collect these seeds, bring them to Oyster, Virginia, where we have a curing facility. And then in the fall, we go out and we actually sow them like you're feeding chickens, basically. And then they continue to grow and grow and grow. I really want to keep talking about this so much, but I'm going to cruise on because I'll get too excited. But it's another thing that people are coming to study all the time in normal years, and that you can absolutely help with as well. I just also want to throw out, because Coastal Resilience is one of our newer programs that was not really so ramped up in 2016 when I came to see y'all, but we have a really great interactive online tool that was designed by the Nature Conservancy and academic partners, as well as government partners like NASA, that has all kinds of different applications. Some of you may be aware of this, actually. I know the town looks at it. It's not completely asimilar to the RAFT program, but it's a different focus. Some of y'all may be aware of the RAFT work that went on as well. This is something that we can use to talk with our local decision makers, local landowners. Anybody can go online and play around with it. And we also have designed it so that there are teacher and classroom training models, so that science teachers can actually lead coastal resilience lessons using on the ground collected data in their students' neighborhoods. And it seems to be something that people are really getting interested in talking more and more about. We have public listening sessions in both counties every year where we gather more information to learn about what kinds of things people would like to see this tool be able to perform if they're interested in learning about the benefits of installing living shorelines, or if they'd like to see where the marsh will migrate to under certain storm conditions. We can implement that kind of thing. It's a living program. It's really neat. I'll send the link out afterwards. Now, of course, all I really want to talk about is this, but fortunately, I guess I've been doing that the whole time. So our education and outreach program, as Bill mentioned, is relatively new. If you look at the fact that we've been here for 51 years, this program has existed for just over 6. And the thinking is, Jill Bieri, who's our dear director, came on. She has a history in seagrass ecology and environmental education. She is a scientist, but she's a people scientist. Well, not a sociologist, but anyway, she said, we need to make sure that people have an understanding of what we're doing here. So the very least they can feel pride in it. And at the most, they may want to participate in it. Perhaps I can get a kid who gets so excited about this kind of thing that he or she is going to grow up to be a science teacher or a scientist, or, who knows, maybe they're going to work for the Marine Resource Commission, helping people install nature-based solutions. We need to create new champions for conservation, as well as reinforce all of us who already love this kind of work. And so we offer all kinds of programs throughout the year, obviously more in a normal year, but we are trying to figure out how we can do things smartly and safely going forward. And by the way, I hear you on the crab cakes. I'm sorry, because I love them, but I think it's probably a good call. Your crab cakes are the best. Our education program, I'll tell you, focuses on 5th, 7th, and 10th graders from Accomack and Northampton counties. Everything we do is ultra local. There are lots of great programs going around the state and the world, as I said, but we focus right here on the Eastern Shore. It's where we are, it's where we're doing our work. And we have funding from the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration to pay for school buses and substitute teachers and materials and everything that we need in order to provide these meaningful watershed educational experiences for 5th, 7th, and 10th graders. We've chosen these grades because it matches with what the teachers are having to teach for the SOLs. We can't get away from the fact that there are Virginia standards of learning required by our schools administrations. So the best thing we can do is make sure that teachers have the opportunity to provide hands-on field experiences for their students that help them teach these lessons sort of outside of the bubble in a way that they can really experience. And our education team has gone through a training of how to provide virtual context for these. So that's something that we're looking into doing with the teachers now, is providing virtual field experiences while we wait to get their students back. One thing we are now being able to go ahead with is our professional development program for local teachers, which we had done quite a bit of in the past. We provide free professional development experiences for Accomack and Northampton County teachers, public and private schools. And it is regardless of their grade or discipline taught. You can be a kindergarten teacher. We've had a cosmetology teacher. Anybody who needs to get those recertification points can come and get them in these fantastic, often literally immersive experiences with us. And provides them with an excellent opportunity to network with different teachers from different localities as well. We are going to be offering our spring Coastal Bay Ecology Workshop in a combination of virtual and hands-on. And obviously we're having to do things like greatly reduce the class size. I think we're having 6 teachers because we need to make sure they can have a full and safe experience. And that's, it takes 2 boats even to get 6 teachers out right now. So got to make sure we don't tax our staff too much too. So something that is coming up for the students, because we're not able to do these hands-on field experiences, are Wild Wednesdays and Fun Fridays, and I'll include a flyer for this in your information as well. We are going out to the parks. We think the best thing we can do is to get our education team into parks in Northampton and Accomack County. We're staggering Wednesdays is Northampton, Fridays is Accomack County, and we're going to a different park and a different part of the county for each of these 4 experiences, so 8 total. They're not necessarily in line with the standards of learning, but it's just an effort to get kids away from their screen, get them learning, get them feeling connected. I mean, everything they're going to do is educational. They won't know it because they'll be having a blast. And we're going to provide a free lunch, both because we want to, but also we feel like that's a good way to get kids connected. And it's a 4-hour experience. So the grown-up can drop their child off and actually go get their grocery shopping done or whatever. Our educators will take on their safety and their education and then return them even more full and happy than when they were first dropped off. And also something I'll include information about our packets called Discover EE that we're doing in partnership with UVA and some other educational partnerships. There are places throughout the shore where parents and guardians can actually go and pick up physical packets to learn about things they can do in their backyard with their kids. So if you've got somebody who happens to, maybe you live in a trailer park or something, that's fine. There's a pine cone out there or a buttercup. There are different things that can be explored, and we're just trying to help parents and grown-ups be able to connect their kids with these opportunities, even if they're not necessarily being able to do it in a traditional school way. And now, the ways that you can visit us at the Brownsville Preserve in Nassawadox, we have a 3.5-mile public birding and wildlife trail that's absolutely beautiful. It's out and back, so about 1.7 miles out, and then you come back the same way, but everything looks different when you're walking south or north, right? And it's a really beautiful, nice, even trail. We do have an ADA accessible gate at the entrance that allows strollers and bicycles access, of course, as well as motorized accessibility vehicles. You can see the little crushed shell part of the trail there, that it's all flat and relatively even. So for the most part, people who are in wheelchairs or on jazzy scooters and stuff can come out and enjoy this trail. We're the only nature conservancy preserve in the state that allows leashed good dogs, not on the islands for a reason we've talked about, but we do welcome dogs to the preserve so folks can come and walk them. We do ask that they stay on a leash for a number of reasons, but really always first in my mind is whether or not your dog is a good dog doesn't mean I'm comfortable with it approaching me, or that my leash dog isn't going to go completely nuts if your unleashed dog comes running up to me. So there are like a million reasons to keep your dog on a leash, starting with please keep your dog on a leash, be a person, right? But feel free to bring them. There are maps at the trailhead and there are guided walks throughout the year. As I mentioned, we're going to be offering a lot more of them because we have to keep them really small. We also have a meadow walk at Brownsville Preserve, which is right out in front of our office. It's very short. It's a 1/10 of a mile loop, but as you can see, it goes deep into this pollinator meadow and kind of wiggles around. You can get right out in the middle of this habitat for these bees and butterflies without having to wade through waist-deep briars. Now, I will tell you that everything that lives in waist-deep briars is still out there. So you want to do a tick check when you leave. You want to look out for old legless out there. There are a few snakes, though we don't have too many poisonous snakes on the Eastern Shore, but it's a really neat way once the summer blooms start coming in to get really in depth in one of these pollinator habitats with relatively low impact to you and to the habitat. If you go right now, you will find the whole thing is flat because we do have to mow occasionally in order to make sure that we're preserving the right habitat for migratory birds and that kind of thing. It will all be growing back within a month and a half. And then closer to home in Oyster Village, there's the Horse Island Trail, so named because it looks like a horse head aerially. It's what folks have called it forever. It's about 1/8 of a mile. It is an unimproved shell path that actually was laid down years ago when there was a seafood processing plant there. It's the discards from that. But it provides some really beautiful marsh and coastal bay views. And there is an ADA accessible viewing platform and parking spot at the trailhead. So while you may not be able to necessarily get all the way down the trail, you get to an elevation where you can really get a chance to look out over the marsh and see out towards the barrier islands. It's absolutely beautiful. And we designed it with input from the Oyster Community Engagement Group, which is a group of local folks that that we brought together that were interested in trying to figure out ways to provide public access to the properties. The Nature Conservancy owns most of the property around Oyster. And this is a place where people have traditionally always walked anyway. We just wanted to make it official. And as I say, provide a little accessibility. Here's some of the stuff we have going on this coming month. This is the end. We've done it. So we have a variety of things that we'll be offering. And again, I'll send this information out. We're trying to do as many virtual appearances as we can for other people's comfort and because we can reach a lot more folks. But we are starting to do some public walks, which, as I mentioned, are maintaining very small group size. People are masked the entire time, even though we're outdoors, because safety is just absolutely important. And if you're without a doubt, then you can really enjoy yourself more, at least if you're if you're like me. So we've got lots of opportunities for you to get to be involved. You can come see us. You're welcome to come out and walk on the trails on your own, or to get in touch with me if you have any questions beforehand. Anything you're interested in knowing, if I don't know the answer, which is highly possible, I can put you in touch with the expert who does. That's what's cool about being the coordinator. So I thank you for your time. I rattled on. In the meantime, I did actually get a text from my 1:30 saying that she has to reschedule. So I have some extra time, but I know you may not, but I don't have to run away if you have questions.
Hey, Margaret, thank you so much. You are a force of nature. And we can stick around if you can, if we have questions for Margaret. Any questions for Margaret? Alan does. Alan, you're on mute. Alan, you're on mute.
My old friend Alan. Alan and I go back to my kayaking days with Southeast
Yeah,
Expedition.
that's better.
There you go.
I go back a number of years, and I just want to know if she could provide me with a quick contact point for former colleague Dave Burden. Just for my information.
Alan, let me lead with good luck.
You can give it to me separately. You just send me an email or something.
Yes, I will be happy to. Absolutely.
I think you have my email from times past.
Yes, and it actually may still be the same email, but I'll double check with him. He is in Kauai now, and so even harder to catch than usual. Although I understand Southeast Expeditions is cruising along. I will get you that contact.
Matter of information for the rest of the group, Dave Burden and Margaret Van Cleef came to my grandson's wedding up in Pennsylvania when he was a guide with Southeast Expeditions down here on the kayak. So that there's been some interaction. Thank you very much, Margaret.
That's right, Alan. That was a wonderful wedding too. And I was so excited I got to stay in that motel that's made out of cabooses. If anybody else wants to track Dave down, I can help.
Anything else for Margaret? Hey, Margaret, thank you so much. We can't wait to see you in person. Send us all that stuff, and I will send you a YouTube video of our entire meeting and your presentation. I think
how great. I can see how wickedly fast I spoke. Mehdi, were you waiting or did you have a question? Sorry,
Well,
Bill.
I just want to let you know that I have participated in some of the programs and I enjoyed it very much. And you're doing
I'm so glad. I think we met for the first time at our holiday open house, didn't we?
Yeah, right.
At Brownsville.
Yeah.
I thought so. I liked you right away.
everybody loves Mehdi.
I think Mehdi and I may be cut from the same cloth.
Okay, if there aren't any other questions, Diane? With regard to what we think, say, and do, 1, is it the truth? 2, is it fair to all concerned? 3, will it build goodwill and better friendships? 4, will it be beneficial to all concerned? And Stanley?
Will we all have some fun?
See you next week.
Thank you all.
Stanley and Mehdi, I'm looking forward to the book reading too.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. Yeah, that will be
Thank you, Margaret. Thank you,
Thanks,
Margaret.
Thanks, Chuck. Appreciate y'all.
All right.